Hello, welcome to day 4 of the Control Your Cravings course. I'm Carolyn Banner of Body by Banner, and I'm excited to talk today about sleep and how sleep is actually a stress on our body and how that actually impacts our cravings big time. This is probably one of the most fundamental things that I've been working on myself and have a lot of my clients working on, because a lot of times when they come to see me as a dietitian and personal trainer, they think, I gotta work on my exercise, I gotta work on my nutrition. And honestly, what oftentimes we need to work on the most as a stressed out, sleep deprived society is our sleep and stress management. And let me just say it again, lack of sleep or inadequate sleep is a stressor on our bodies. Hey Veronica, thanks for joining in. So yeah, if you're joining in, please hit like. If you can hear me, just give me a thumbs up. If you can hear me and see me okay, it always just helps to know that the connection's okay, because sometimes it's a little wonky. And then put in the comments, please, where you're watching or listening in from. I also put in the comments if you have any questions, and I will be sure to answer those at the end of this talk. So I want to get the information out to you guys and then cover any questions at the end. Or if you are watching this later, feel free to email me as well. If you're watching this through YouTube, I always love to hear from you guys. You can always leave a comment on YouTube or shoot me an email at Carolyn@carolynbanner.com. But if you're watching on Facebook, please put a question in the comment and I will get to that at the end. So housekeeping stuff out of the way. Oh, okay. Since we're talking about sleep, I thought it'd be fun to just hear, how much did you sleep last night? Just curious, like what was your number of hours of sleep, if you know? So put that in the comments. And then how much do you usually get? Like, are you 6 hours per night, 8 hours per night, always 7? How much do you usually get per night? I'd love to hear, and curious probably what other people are thinking or do for their sleep. And then what you actually did last night, because I think that's going to affect, I want to talk a little bit about how you're feeling today and maybe that effect on your cravings today while we're going about the day. So for me, I'm usually a 7 to 8 hour of sleep per night kind of lady. Last night I got 7.5 hours, but here's the thing, I've been catching up from a night on Sunday night. We didn't get back from Washington, D.C. until 2 a.m. because our flight was canceled, and then our rescheduled one was delayed, and we didn't get home from that trip from the airport until 2 a.m. So I got maybe 5 hours of sleep that night, so I'm still catching up. Plus, when we were in New York City for the weekend, I was kind of just staying out later, and we were trying to get as much in as we could, so I was kind of short on sleep already. So I'm still feeling it. I really should probably be getting 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep to try and make up for that sleep deficit. So yeah, curious how you guys are. Put in the comments how much you usually get. 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, 9, whatever it is. And then also what you did last night. For me, because I got a decent amount of sleep last night, about 7.5 hours is usual for me. But because of that sleep deficit that I'm still making up for, I am definitely still feeling the effects on my cravings and my hunger. I've been feeling it since Monday, since that first day of really getting sleep deprived. Monday and Tuesday, my cravings were through the roof. And today, I'm still feeling it. I'm still feeling a little bit more hungry than I normally would, given the amount of exercise and other activities that I'm doing. And I'm feeling my cravings for carbs in particular. So here's the thing, when we aren't getting enough sleep, I got distracted by a comment, so I'm just I want to hear what you guys' comments are, but I just slid it over so I could not be distracted. So when we don't get enough sleep, and that again, like I like to share about nutrition and exercise, always put it through the filter of you. Everyone's a little different. There's usually a window between 7 to 9 hours, and that is adequate for sleep every night. But if you are getting less than what you feel is optimal for you, then you're gonna have an effect on your body that's similar to long duration stress. So something like where you have an ongoing issue that's stressful for you, maybe at work or in your family life, or just with politics and other things going on in the world. Those things are long duration stress that really can have an effect on our appetite and our cravings. what is short duration stress could be something where your adrenaline's really peaks, where you are worried your child's gonna run out into the street and you grab them and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a like immediate stress. Or if you feel like someone's following you, that's a short duration stress. And those actually are known to suppress our appetite and craving. So I'm talking about long duration stress. So lack of sleep or inadequate sleep, even if it's just for one night, has a similar effect as stress. So what that does hormonally in our body is really kick up our cortisol levels, the stress hormone, which you've kind of heard me talk about probably on and off throughout all these trainings. So cortisol gets bumped up, and other hormones get affected as well. Ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, gets boosted, so you feeling more hungry just for food in general. And then leptin is a hormone that's our kind of kickoff. It's like, okay, I'm full, stop eating. That you usually, like they say, to kind of eat slowly. It takes like 20 minutes for us to feel full. That's leptin kicking in. That is suppressed when we have chronic stress or lack of sleep, which is similar to that long duration stress. So it can really almost feel like, so not only are hormones really kind of off whack, but our brains are having a hard time just doing activities of daily living and functioning at its finest, because we're essentially like we're drunk. We're walking around like we're drunk people. So like we've had too many drinks. And if you've ever experienced that, which hopefully you haven't too often in your life, but maybe you have at earlier phases of your life, when you've been maybe a college student or something, if you've been drunk, you don't usually make the best decisions. Try going grocery shopping when you're overly tired, equivalent to feeling drunk. That's not going to always lead to the best choices. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, going grocery shopping when you're hungry. I would say going grocery shopping when you're overly tired and stressed out and having a lot of cravings also isn't going to lead you to probably buying the best foods and buying a lot of those foods that you crave the most. Chips, maybe, or getting ice cream or cookies or all of the above and putting those into your cart, rather than filling it up with all the colorful produce and lean proteins and other good things, and lots of fibrous foods. So walking around like we're drunk if we're overly tired not only leads us to maybe making not such great choices for what we bring into our home, and right, like our environment matters. So if we have them in the house, then we're more likely to eat them. Even if we have really good willpower, they find that environment matters, our amount of exposure. So if we're exposing ourselves to high trigger craving foods, then we're more likely to indulge in them, even the person who has the willpower of steel. So that's one way. And then also because it impairs our judgment and the functioning of our brain by being short on sleep, then it can lead to just poor choices in the moment. So not just in buying those foods and bringing them into the house, but if you're out for a walk and you happen to walk by a cupcake shop or cafe and you're having a coffee with a friend, you're more likely to grab something with it that might not be help you feel your best. You're gonna be triggered for those cravings a lot more likely. So it just impairs our function, right? So I just found that really interesting when I was reading about sleep and cravings, and just like how sleep really affects our brain like we're drunk. Our lack of sleep affects our brains like we're drunk. So if that helps to kind of drive home how much lack of sleep can have on us. So one other thing I want to just mention in terms of sleep is, like I said, there's a range. There's a kind of a range of hours that work best for you. And I think most people kind of have an idea what their range of hours are optimally for them. For me, it's 7.5 to 8 hours. One way that I've found that out, and maybe you're not sure, if you're not sure, you can maybe use an app on your phone. There's oftentimes ways you can kind of track your sleep. Honestly, I just use on the iPhone the bedtime app or alarm. I don't even know what I mean. One of my clients asked me about it. But basically, where you set your alarm, you can set an alarm for you to know when to go to bed. So I usually set that for around 10:30. And then it, of course, has an alarm for you to wake up. So it's like on both sides, an alarm to go to sleep and an alarm to wake up. And through that app, it tracks in the health part of the phone, the health app, my sleep trends. And so that's really been helpful for me to follow those trends and match it kind of and pay attention to how I'm feeling and pay attention to how my hunger and cravings are. So if you haven't done that, I already have been encouraging the ladies in the Magic Makers movement, my coaching group, to be doing this, to pay attention to their sleep, their hunger, their energy, what they're doing for exercise, and their cravings, and just taking 5 minutes every day to go through those things and pay attention. And so by tracking your sleep for a bit and your cravings and hunger, it can really open up some clues and figure out maybe how much sleep you really do best with. Just one second, I want to check out what you guys are saying for sleep. Awesome. So let's see, 9 p.m. 7 to 8 hours, 8 hours last night. Awesome. Yes. So Beatrice is bringing up a really good point about children and having kids and moms and having a hard time getting an adequate sleep. That can be really tricky. So I definitely want to touch on that. Shireen wrote in 6 hours, really prefer 7. She only had around 5 last night. Okay, cool. So thanks for that feedback, you guys. And if you're watching later, I would still love to hear how much you usually get and then how much you got last night and what you're feeling today. So now, for those of you watching, what are your feelings today around food? Are you, and maybe it's early in the day for you, so you don't really know yet, but if you're somewhere that's further along in the time zones, how have your cravings been? Have you had more cravings than usual, would you say, or have you had fewer? Do you feel like you're kind of coasting through and it's been pretty easy to make healthy choices, or has it been harder for you to really choose the good stuff and been more tempted to go after those salty, sugary, fattier foods? So let me know in the comments how your cravings have been today, and we're gonna kind of put the pieces together with your sleep. All right, I want to just gather myself. So I want to give you some information today on, so we kind of went over what happens when we don't get enough sleep. We kind of went over how it's good to kind of pay attention to how much sleep that you usually do best with. So just getting that base level assessment to track your sleep for I would say for a couple weeks at least. And especially during a time when it's more of a consistent period for you rather than when you're maybe traveling a lot. So doing it during a consistent period to get an assessment of what your optimal sleep time is. And then I want to go over a little bit more about this cortisol, right? Like I'm saying, lack of sleep or inadequate sleep is similar to a long duration stress, raising our cortisol levels. So what cortisol does, I explained what ghrelin and leptin do. Ghrelin increases your appetite. Leptin it doesn't give you that kind of shut off effect from eating, like you just want to keep eating. And cortisol also increases our appetite. And so that's fine. It can increase our appetite for healthy things too. It's not discretionary, but here's the thing. Cortisol increases our motivation to eat. So it not only increases our appetite, it increases our motivation to eat those highly palatable, addictive kind of foods that we've been mentioning in other trainings, the sugary, fatty, salty foods that are often in combination. So those treats you might get out, or French fries, or alcohol too. It increases our cravings for those things that are usually kind of addictive type of substances. And what happens too with cortisol, when you have elevated cortisol levels, your body is more likely to store fat. It affects the insulin and glucose tolerance in our bodies. And so if we're not able to utilize the food that we're taking in, then we store it as fat. And when we start to store more and more fat, what happens over time is that what they've realized in research in the last about 10, 20 years is that our fat mass all over our body, and when we have more of it, it actually starts to act like an endocrine organ itself, secreting hormones. So it's not just benign. So having excess fat is not benign. It can actually start to release more cortisol into the body. It can start to release other hormones that make it difficult to lose the fat. It's self-protective, and it makes it harder it triggers more of those cravings, right? Like throwing the ghrelin and leptin out of balance. So all those things, and making the insulin resistance a little bit more tricky. So you're just in that state of it making harder and harder to store fat. So this is a big, big issue I know in the Western society, in the North America, where we're chronically under sleep. I think the average is around 6.5 hours of sleep. And research has shown that when they followed a group of people for 6 years, the ones that had less than 6 hours of sleep per night gained more than 2 times the amount of weight that the cohort that slept 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night did over that 6-year period. So over 6 years, they followed these groups. One group was getting around 6 hours of sleep per night. The other group was getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night. And again, these results are unique to these individuals. So, you know, it can't be completely extrapolated to the whole population, but it gives us some trends. But that difference was 2 times more weight gain for the sleep deprived group, getting less than 7 hours of sleep per night on average. And so it's a really big problem, because when you have that excess weight gain, like, right, the goal is to try and keep our weight stable and healthy and not gain that weight, because like I was saying, once we have that fat mass in excess, it starts to really self-protect and like hold on, not want to lose that fat mass, and starts secreting out hormones to kind of keep that fat mass on our bodies. It's like becomes the new normal for our body. And unfortunately, you know, it drives up more cravings. It makes it harder to lose weight, specifically fat. So my goal as a dietitian and trainer is usually to try and promote that healthy weight and like maintain that weight and not have huge weight gain, because it can really disrupt. So the whole picture is, right, like inadequate sleep can lead to disturbances in our hormones, which make it harder for us to keep our weight under control, because it drives up cravings, it drives up our stress hormones, it can make it easier for our bodies to store that fat, which then perpetuates the cycle, makes it harder. I'd rather it be like, it's much easier to maintain than to gain and try and lose it later on. So that's usually the goal. I know it's the goal of the like CDC, of the World Health Organization. As doctors, dietitians, like that's our goal, is to help people maintain their weight. And one of the key ways to do that is through sleep and stress management. So I really want to drive that home, like, because people usually think, oh, it's nutrition, oh, it's exercise. And those are super important, but I would say those are more important for when we are in the action mode of trying to take off the weight and maintain. I would say first, for trying to prevent weight gain and to halt weight gain, I would say optimizing sleep and minimizing stress, or mitigating it and really managing it is number one. Like if you think of a pyramid of the most important thing being on the base, like the thing you need to put the most energy into, I would say sleep and stress management, then nutrition, then exercise. And yeah, so just want to drive that point home. Just curious, do you guys resonate? Does that make sense with you? Is this making sense? Is this new information for you? Because I think sometimes when you, especially from a trainer and a dietitian, you might be thinking, oh, you know, the most important thing is nutrition, or the most important things exercise. And while those are really important, I think sleep and stress management are the most important things that we can really do. And I often say, and I did a Facebook Live a couple weeks ago, just talking about sort of this classic example of a stressed out, underslept mom who's really feeling guilty about doing workouts. And that's not really, I would say, where the energy needs to be put. The energy, I would say, is in a loving way to do as much as we can to optimize our rest. So I know sleep in one stretch at night, as especially a new mom, is an impossibility. So doing whatever we can to get in that sleep as best as we're able to, and then make up maybe some naps during the day, and to try and optimize the rest. I know it can be really tempting when you're already tired. I felt this myself as a new mom, to make up for it with coffee and just drink coffee the next day well into the day. And then it would be hard for me, as a combination of the caffeine and the stress of being a mom, worrying, all the thoughts would be running through my mind. And even if my baby was sleeping, I would have a hard time sleeping. So I'm not trying to add any more guilt to moms, because I feel it. I have mom guilt about stuff all the time. But just as an encouragement that maybe putting our energy on optimizing our sleep and rest as much as we can. I know sleep can be very difficult as a new mom, especially, but to really work on just whatever energy we can put into it, to focus there on making the most of it and making the best out of it, rather than maybe adding more guilt and putting our energy into our workouts and feeling like we have to like bounce back with our body. One of the best ways to bounce back as a new mom is to try and get more sleep. Okay, let's see, where are we? Any questions, you guys? Please put them in the comments. It's nice to have you watching on live. So here we go. Okay, I want to give you some tools to take home and to kind of work with optimizing your sleep as a way to minimize those cravings and to really help keep you feeling like you're on track with your weight management, and to realize the importance of really getting that good sleep. There's some ways that, I'm obviously not a sleep expert. I'm a dietitian and trainer and yoga teacher, so I'm gonna bring what tools I have from those areas in my practice in my personal life, and just share a few things that are related to lifestyle as well as nutrition. So in terms of lifestyle, in terms of trying to optimize your sleep in order to curb those cravings, I want to just encourage you to try and pick one thing. Like, I'm going to give you 3 tips at the end today to try and implement, and one of them will be to pick one thing to focus on in terms of optimizing your sleep. Everyone has their own psychological and personal preferences, and I always think it's most motivating to find what resonates most with you. So I could tell you, you should do this, and yet it doesn't really feel like a good fit for you, then don't do it. Do what feels right for you. I'm gonna give you some options, and I'm gonna encourage you to pick one that feels like, yes, I can really implement this and move the dial a little bit. And then maybe after I feel comfortable with that, I can move on to something else. That's the goal. And one of them would be, in terms of sleep, lifestyle factors around optimizing your sleep, would be to try and just go to bed 15 minutes earlier. So if you're running short on sleep after you do kind of a sleep assessment, if your optimal sleep window, like mine, is 7.5 to 8 hours, and you're chronically getting around 6.5 to 7, then just starting for like 2 weeks to get to bed 15 minutes earlier. So not trying to get to bed a whole hour earlier, because that can be really hard, but just trying to move it back up a little bit, getting to sleep about 15 minutes earlier. Just that 15 minutes, they've found, can have such a tremendous positive effect on the next day in terms of like cognition and our effect on our hormones. So again, when we have a big amount of weight to lose, like even just losing 5 to 10% has huge health benefits. Similar with sleep. When we have a huge sleep deficit, just getting a little bit more sleep has a huge amount of positive benefits. So just that would be the number one thing. Trying to go to bed 15 minutes earlier. Another one would be to turn off the screens, digital detox for at least 30 minutes before you put your head on the pillow, so that you start reading, maybe do meditation. Some of the ladies that I work with are doing a nice bedtime yoga routine that uses the bed as a prop, so it's nice because then you're just right there. I think one of the ladies listening has done that and part of her kind of nighttime routine to optimize sleep. And also working on maybe caffeine. And I know it's a tricky one. People really love their coffee or caffeine, but just slowly just pull back. Maybe working on just having coffee or caffeine before noon. Maybe working on slowly, gradually shifting from, if you're a coffee drinker, incorporating some decaf in there and mixing half calf, full calf. Just some ideas, slowly weaning yourself down on that amount of caffeine. And to be honest, like, caffeine has a limited dose effect. So if after it stops working really, if you can't just keep getting the same effect than that you did at the very beginning, right? Like, it starts to have such a positive effect. So if you want still that buzz, you kind of have to pull back a little bit and not have yourself be so used to caffeine. So what I've done is to really cut out my coffee to just 1 cup in the morning, and of that cup, it's kind of embarrassing. This is like my mom used to do. It's probably like a quarter calf. It's a quarter of caffeine, and that's enough for me. I have a really weird metabolism with caffeine, so it works for me, and it doesn't disturb my sleep later on. There's a lot of other things you can do to optimize your sleep, with dimming the lights, with blocking out the light in your room, with making the room cooler, with wearing earplugs, with all these things, right? There's a million things, and you can look those up. But I want to shift on to, and there's a lot of resources on the internet, I'm saying. I don't want to spend too much time on that. I want to also shift to nutrition. So what are some things with nutrition that we can do to help optimize our sleep, which by getting better sleep will help curb our cravings? And one is, there's some certain nutrients that are helpful to get in the diet a little bit more of. And one of those is selenium. And here's a really easy tip. If you know what Brazil nuts are, if you have 1 to 2 of those a day, you'll get your selenium that you need for the day. So getting optimal amounts of selenium, really easy to do with Brazil nuts or sunflower seeds also have a good bit of selenium. I'm just looking at my notes here. Tryptophan is another classic one that you've heard if you are familiar with like turkey on Thanksgiving here in the United States. People always get tired afterwards, which I think is more to do with just overindulging and just being like so stuffed. But turkey, other poultry products, eggs, sweet potato, seeds, all of those have a good bit of tryptophan that helps the body to really start to mellow out and get a good night's sleep. Chamomile tea is classic. It's a really nice calming herb. Even if you're stressed out and it's not bedtime, having a cup of chamomile tea is really helpful for just calming down the nervous system. And that's, yeah, now I'm gonna just talk for a second about yoga, but I'm not gonna jump around. Other nutrients that are really helpful are calcium and magnesium. So you can find those in leafy greens, are powerhouses of those nutrients. Dairy products, I would encourage you, if you do have them, to get organic and mostly whole fat dairy products. And then almonds and beans also have a good bit of calcium and magnesium in them. B vitamins are really helpful for making sure that, again, our nervous system has the nutrients that needs to stay calm and well regulated instead of all out of whack. So those can come from, again, leafy greens, beans, nuts, and seeds. So seeing a trend here, right? Plant-based diet. Throwing in some good lean protein with some turkey and eggs, and you've got a good recipe for optimizing your sleep with nutrition. Having a cup of chamomile tea before bed. Another one that's really helpful is vitamin D. So again, free-range eggs, so from eggs that have been in the pasture, pecking around, not from caged eggs. And then mushrooms, salmon, and other fatty fish are really rich sources of vitamin D. So again, I'm not talking about supplementing with these things and taking pills with them. I'm just talking about including them in your diet as much as you're able to. And again, if you're eating a really nutrient-rich plant-based diet with some addition of healthy proteins and thoughtful sources of protein, you're gonna be doing the best work. And then you can be a little thoughtful maybe about adding in the chamomile tea. Another one that we had a special recipe that our very own Stephanie Kleinberg, that's in the Magic Makers movement. She's a female hormone health coach that focuses on hormones, healthy hormones. And she included a recipe for really lovely nighttime tea with chamomile and tart cherry juice. That was another one I forgot. So tart cherry juice is really helpful for inducing sort of the melatonin effects that help us kind of slow down and get ready for a good night's sleep. Okay, let's see. So those were some ideas for nutrition. I want to just move back to let's see, the 3 tips. So I want to just leave you with some things to take home with you and to help you implement to help you get a better night's sleep. And this is a tip, the first one, they're going to go through 3. The first one is to just go to sleep. This is kind of a joke with the ladies that I work with, is that when we're having those nighttime cravings in particular, a lot of women do. I mean, like, I would say, like, I honestly haven't met a client that hasn't struggled with it. So nighttime cravings are huge. So when those hit and you're close to going to bed anyway, and you're tired and that's contributing to your cravings and it's just creating this cycle, just go to bed. Just stop, get your hand out of the bag, just put the food away and go to bed. You can read a book or whatever, but if you just make that physical change in your situation and start the routine to go to sleep, that's the number one thing, is just stop. Just stop, drop, and go to sleep. The second one is to optimize your sleep and pick one habit to optimize your specific sleep. And that's, again, picking one of the things I went over. It could be going to bed 15 minutes earlier, doing the 30-minute digital detox before bed. It can be working on cutting back on your caffeine or being really mindful about when you consume it. It could be doing a meditation before bed, picking one thing that just like, yeah, I can do this. This isn't too hard to really be consistent on. I'm gonna do this one thing, do it for 2 weeks, and then you can maybe try something else that I mentioned if you're feeling like you really need to still kind of chip away at getting your sleep back up to that optimal sleep window for you. The third thing is to, and this is more of a mindset trick that you can use for starting any new habit. So we've actually, as a society, voluntarily cut back on our sleep, right? Like we think, oh, we're so busy, or it's because we have kids, or because of X, Y, and Z, when really what they've been finding through a lot of these sleep studies, many of them have been done here at the University of Chicago. They've done a lot of research on sleep, and that it's voluntary almost all the time. It's not because we're working more hours or all these X, Y, and Z's. It's because we're actually voluntarily staying up later. We're choosing to binge watch on Netflix. It might not feel like a choice because you're like, I have to watch this. We're watching more shows. We're scrolling through social media on our phones. We're doing these things that are actually choices. Maybe going out more and staying out with friends. There's just a lot of options now as a society that we have as distractions. And so it can be kind of hard to see it this way, but we're actually choosing to stay up later most of the time. And when I'm really honest with myself, it's a choice. It's not me working. And when I honestly think about it, even though I'm a working mom and it's hard to find time to fit in enough hours in the day to get all my work done, and sometimes I do need to work at night, but I really have to be like thoughtful about it, because honestly, like 1 hour well rested the next day is 3 times or 4 times as productive as that like just hashing it out at night, just trying to finish it up. And it takes so much longer because I'm tired and maybe distracted by my cravings, and half the time wanting to go up and get something to eat. And that like hour at night is so much less productive than a well-rested hour. So if I could just go to bed and get that work done the next day, I'll be much better off. So just wanted to mention that, like voluntary, I knew I was forgetting something early on, but our sleep, shortening our sleep has been, as a society overall, mostly due to voluntary choices. So when we're making a habit change, so that's become the habit, right? Is the habit is cutting back on or cutting down on our sleep and staying up maybe later to do some of these things, or we just get accustomed to it. So to create a new habit, what I like to do is really, it can feel difficult, especially at first, to make that change, is to write out 3 positives for making that change, because in the moment it can be really hard to follow through and break that habit. So I like to have written out where I can see it 3 positives for why I want to do this change. So for in this instance, 3 positives about why I want to go to bed earlier. That's for me, and I'll share my 3 positives that I specifically gain. So what are the things I'm going to gain? So when it doesn't feel like it's worth it for me to really follow through on changing this habit, I can call to mind those 3 positives to be like, yes, I'm going to stick with this. This is worth it. And I want to follow through. For me, and again, they should be unique to you, I'm just going to share mine as an example, is that one positive is that I have decreased cravings the next day. So it saves me time and energy and emotional, like worrying about all these food that I'm like tempted by. So I feel in control of food instead of food feeling like it's ruling my life. So that's number 1, is I have decreased cravings when I get good sleep. The second one is, so it's worth it for me to go to bed earlier. The second one is that I'm more productive when I'm well rested, right? So that what I was just saying, like 1 hour well rested is worth like 3 hours of like super tired work at night. So that's number 2, is more productive when I'm well rested. So it's worth it for me to go to bed early, unless it's of course an emergency or something that I have to like really crank out time sensitive. Number 3 is that the positive is that I look forward to getting up and have that quiet alone time in the early morning hours. And one thing I've heard from moms especially is that part of the reason why they're staying up later, like this voluntary choice to stay up later, is because it's their only time by themselves. When they're not being touched by kids, when they're not being asked to get a snack or do this or that, and it's their only time that they really have for quiet and to be alone. And moms, I hear you. I feel that way too, but I've had to really try to make that shift and say, what serves me better overall? Because yes, in the moment, it feels really good to have that alone time, and I really need it as an introvert for myself. But I can also get that in the morning and do that in the morning. There's some things where I was talking to my friend Steph about this, that like meditation, for example, I actually enjoy sometimes more in the evening because he's less likely to wake up. So I feel like it's more on my terms, versus in the morning, if I'm meditating and it's kind of close to his wake up time in my situation, then it's like I'm always thinking I'm like listening for him and feeling distracted. So that's just something, you know, there's certain things I totally get. Try and get those things that are more like important for you at night, and then really make that time in the morning your alone time as well, but maybe things where you're not going to be feeling distracted by like if they're going to interrupt you and they wake up. So those are just my 3. I'm curious if you are trying to make some changes in your habits. It could be related to exercise or nutrition too. This is a good tool to write out 3 positives to help you stick through those times where you're not going to be motivated, because it's going to happen. We're not always motivated, and there's going to be tough times where you're not going to want to do it. And so having those 3 positive things really clear in your mind can help you stick out those times where it's a little bit trickier to follow through. I did exactly this, like writing out 3 positives for myself when I really made that shift when I was a mom in Argentina, to make sure I walked every day, to make sure that I got in that leisure walking, which is so important for stress management and maintaining healthy weight for fat loss. But I was like really hesitant. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to walk, which sounds so stupid to me now because I love walking. To walk slowly though, because I just felt like it was a waste of my time. I didn't have time for it, blah, 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 blah. So I really had to get clear on 3 very positives for me when I did it. And it really helped drive that habit home. And I'm super consistent with my walking now. It's like I wouldn't skip it at all. So I'm still working on my own sleep habits, and calling to mind those 3 positives really helps me though at night when I'm just like, do I want to watch this show? Like for me, I'm curious if you guys have any Netflix favorites right now. I would love to hear them. Put them in the comments. But for me, they just released on Netflix the season finale for Sense8, and it's like 2.5 hours, like a movie length. And I was really tempted to watch it last night and stay up till like midnight. And I was like, no. It made it really easy choice for me, because I'm just like, nope. You know what? If I do that, it would be fun, but it would really cost me today. I would be really dragging. My cravings would be crazy. I'm still catching up on sleep. So it made the choice a lot easier for me to just say, no, I want to have decreased cravings tomorrow. I want to be more productive tomorrow. And I want to look forward to getting up. This morning, I actually went for a run for like 15 minutes. It was really short. But I got up and I was able to have that time where I would not have been able to do that if I had made that in the moment impulse choice to stay up and watch Sense8 season finale. Okay, guys, that's it from me. Curious if you have any more questions. I'm looking right now, but let me know. And if I don't see it, sometimes I don't see all the comments and questions when I'm scrolling through, but I will make sure to get that when I am reviewing the Facebook Live when I log off. One other thing too, I just sent out last night, kind of late, because I had a really crazy day yesterday just with mom and adult stuff, adulting. But I just sent out to the Control Your Cravings course participants that discount and exclusive access to the Rev and Reset program that we're going to be doing. It starts soon. I know it's kind of like a last minute for you guys, but if you're feeling like you're getting some good information with this course and you're wanting to keep implementing and actually put it into action with some accountability and support from both me and all the ladies that are amazing in the Magic Makers movement and have already done the Rev and Reset, then that's a really great opportunity. I'm only offering this to those that are on the list for the course, for the Control Your Cravings course. So if you're at all interested in doing more intensive 2-week kind of, not boot camp, but it's like I call it a reset, because really we're stripping away some layers with our nutrition and our diet, getting clear on what works for us with our food and what doesn't serve us, because oftentimes we can just fall into some bad behaviors that aren't really keeping us energized, and they can maybe perpetuate more and more cravings, and we don't realize it. It kind of just becomes the new normal. And so what this 2-week Rev and Reset is aiming to do is to peel away some of those layers, to give you a chance to see if there's a way of eating that feels better for you, and to feel like you can actually feel your best and maybe even not have cravings, which is amazing. So that's what the goal of the 2 weeks is, to try a new way of eating and to really peel away some of those layers that aren't serving us, and to kind of be a bit more strict. I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit more strict, but it's with intention and it's very nutritionally sound. Trust me, I would not ever do like a crash diet kind of thing. This is not that, but it's the closest I will ever get to writing meal plans for people. It's very clear. You have like what to eat, what's on, like what's recommended to eat, what's not, give you ideas for foods to eat, give you recipes, and kind of just talk you through it. We're gonna have a welcome call on Saturday to kick off and go through the program and give you all the tools and information that you need, and answer questions, give you tools on how to prep and just set yourself up for success. And then we're gonna have Facebook Lives throughout, as well as to just check in, answer questions, and wrap up at the end with another live coaching call where we'll be on video together, and again, to ask questions and to successfully transition you off into kind of like, it's not the goal to stay on this Rev and Reset program forever. We're gonna take elements of it, incorporate them into your life, and set you up for success so that you don't bounce back and you don't go back into bad habits. That's the goal. Like, this is, I want you to find a forever way of eating. And these more 2-week intensives are really helpful for just kind of getting clear, like aware of any problem areas, getting clear on what feels good for your body, and getting clear on what you want to do, what really is a priority for you, and how good you can feel, and to make it a way for you to eat forever. Along with it, in addition to the nutrition, you're gonna get access to all my workouts. You're gonna get clear day by day, like do this workout, and to really be smart about it so that we have some days where we're intentionally exercising a bit more, and if fat loss is a goal, maybe eating a little bit less, but just for short windows of time, 2-3 days at the most, and then toggling that with more of a eat more exercise model where you're really intentionally refueling and to try and build lean muscle. And then we're going to mix that with some days where we're going to do like active recovery days where we're maybe eating a little bit less calories, but we're walking and doing a lot of stress reducing activities. So we're going to just bring all this information together that we've been covering in the Control Your Cravings course, but with step-by-step instructions and one-on-one coaching from me and from the other lady. You get support from the ladies in the Magic Makers movement. So super excited to share this with you. It's the first time I'm opening up kind of to the public, at least to those in the Control Your Cravings course. And really excited to welcome you into it. We do it quarterly in the Magic Makers movement. So this is our summer course that we're doing for the Rev and Reset. All right, you guys, shoot me any questions at all.